I'm Hamzah, FreelancingWala, and today I'm back with another session where I bring guests from all over the world. So, today we have another guest who focuses on self discovery, confidence, and personal transformation, and he is the one and only Mr. Patrick Herran, a personal and life coach based in Toronto, Canada. So, Mr. Patrick's coaching philosophy is centered around helping people better understand themselves and align their lives with who they truly are, rather than living according to outside expectations. So, let's get to know more about him and let's have a chit chat with him. So, first of all, hi, hello, Mr. Patrick. How are you doing today?
Oh, hi, I'm doing great, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Patrick, how was your day today?
I had a very good day. Yeah, really busy. uh, and the weather is changing. It's getting really hot here in Toronto.
Yep, same here anyway. Good
But
to
yeah,
know. Yeah. So, Mr. Patrick, first of all, I'd like to ask you what inspired you to become a life coach?
oh, that's a really big question, and there's a fascinating story behind it. I actually
I'd love to
discovered.
hear it.
Thank you. So I discovered life coaching around 10 years ago when I wanted to simply, make some changes to my life. I had just dropped out university. I wanted to study political science, and that's also my parents' background. But I got to a point where life just changed, life happened, and I couldn't really continue studying anymore. I was doing it full time. My parents were supporting me. Then a lot shifted, and I had to start working. So I had to get myself a job, and then I started to realize that this job was obviously not at all what I was passionate about, but at the same time it's like I didn't know what my purpose was. I felt like I was somehow stripped from my old identity, that intellectual, academic, uh, kind of person. And I discovered life coaching through a book, which was called "Coach Yourself Through Success" by Talaine Midener. And this book was like very comprehensive. It helped you work in so many areas of your life, like personal boundaries, finances, time management, physical space, decluttering. So I did a lot. I took a lot of the steps that were involved in the book. I was growing more confident. I was, getting to know myself a lot better and making all those little changes that amounted to a much bigger transformation. And what's really interesting is that I was doing that for like a whole year, and then I remember that I was going out with my mom on a Sunday, which we always do. And she was talking to me about her relationship. So she was, dating again after, my dad passed away a few years back. And I was trying to listen to her attentively. I was trying to give her tell her what I thought, my input. And she started to realize that it was actually very useful. And then all of a sudden, we stopped the conversation, and she tells me, "You should become a coach." Like she knew what I was into, and she saw the value of how I was changing and how I was helping her. And it was her idea actually, which is so crazy because I felt like almost dumb for not seeing that before. And yeah, it's insane. And then when she gave me the insight, I said, wow, this could be really awesome. So I went back home, and then I started like researching life coaching schools, and I ended up signing for a program, and then I finished the program, so I became a life coach.
That's wonderful to know, Mr. Patrick. Thank you so much. I really loved hearing your story. So, Mr. Patrick, so the way you heard about life coaching, if you, and as you mentioned, that you were doing small things that could have a huge impact later on your life, if you were not doing those things and not making those little changes, so in your prediction, in your mind, what do you think? What would be the current Mr. Patrick without making those little changes?
Oh, that's such a good question. And honestly, I don't recognize myself without personal development. I think so many things would have been completely different. Like it really changed my life, the way I see myself, the way I see the world. And a lot would not have happened. Like I did start life coaching, I did start a business, I took like so many courses in business and marketing. That's whole big chapter that I'm going to talk about. And I came to peace with myself. That took me a ton of work, but life hasn't been easy for me. Like in a lot of ways it is. It's like I've been, for the longest time, it felt like I was in that situation where I had a lot to be grateful for, but I was not nearly in the place that I wanted to be. So I had to come to peace with myself and with how things were playing out. So I had certain goals of making really big things happen, but they were not going the way I wanted. And now I see things very different. And to me, one of the probably biggest things that I am grateful for today is that I don't feel like I have to prove myself constantly. And that's very ironic, actually, because a lot of the self-improvement um, frameworks and systems that you see out there, indirectly, one way or another, maybe without wanting to, they make people want to prove themselves. I want to do something important, and if I don't, I don't matter. And I really fell into that trap, right? One of the biggest, since we're on the subject, one of the biggest things that I am grateful for, that I can thank personal development for this, is that get to I am starting to write a book. And I think it's gonna be, really amazing. It's going to reveal like so many problems that people deal with. And interestingly enough, it's going to be for the people who work the most on themselves, but somehow they always feel like something is missing.
All right, that's great to know, Mr. Patrick. That's really wonderful to know. So, Mr. Patrick, so the book which you're writing currently, so what do you think? What kind of impact would it have on the world?
Oh, I love that question. So yeah, I mean, potentially it could be massive. So here's the thing. The way I speak and the way I write is not loud. These are not ideas where I'm just gonna say, follow the steps and you'll be extraordinary. Follow the steps and you'll like, accomplish everything that you want. It's not loud. It doesn't have hype, and it challenges people a lot. And one of my favorite parts about the framework that I've been building, teachings that I want to pass to other people, is that it's going to empower you to regain your agency, your authorship. So instead of, what I expect my readers to do, instead of just doing everything that I tell them to do, is to actually, bring things back to them and say, well, thanks to what Patrick is saying, I know I have to have faith in myself. I know that I am the one calling the shots. And what you really want to do is, take a very different perspective to personal development and see it as something where, first of all, there are no black and white answers. I think that's really important. And that's why one reason I somehow believe that my book will not be super, super crazy popular, like selling millions of copies. And that is that I play with gray areas. Like there's a very good blend of gray areas with certainty. So for example, a lot of self-improvement work is very focused on willpower, right? So the whole paradigm of hustling is that you have to set a goal in mind and then chase it and go after it nonstop, right? So on one hand, I believe that leads a lot of people to burnout. It did for me. But at the same time, I don't really think that having that sort of determination is completely wrong. So I love making the reader or the listener to challenge their assumptions, even the ones that they think have made them a better person. So for instance, if you say, let's talk about mindset a little bit. If you have a certain idea that you learned from an expert, like, the obstacle is the way, or, ideas like, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Either way, those kind of quotes that go around a lot. Um, I'm not fully against them necessarily, but I say, what if thinking like that is actually limiting you? What if you went from one place where you felt powerless, and then you gain that mindset and you feel more empowered? But then that new mindset needs to evolve yet again for you to move to the next level. So, because I think that no piece of your mindset is should be permanent, even if it seems like a better version of what it used to be. And the impact, about the impact we were talking about, potentially, like between us, I sincerely believe that you could challenge Ed on when it comes to self improvement. Like, on one hand, it looks like I'm taking parts of everything that I learned, which is true, but also that's blended with lived experience of how things were not what they seemed, right? Of how, a person can work really hard, they can, you know model success from highly successful people, and things don't go their way. So what I'm trying to to put on the table is something that is a model that is more unique for the person using it, and also it's not so much about um, copying others. So, well, it is directly related with what I said about mindset. Maybe thinking of yourself as like Steve Jobs is a lot better than thinking of yourself as somebody who doesn't believe in, let's say, law of attraction or determination or greed. Yes, that's an improvement. But to me, the highest possible improvement you can make is to go from from copying the person you admire to becoming yourself.
Yeah, that is true. Thank you so much, Mr. Patrick, for that wonderful answer. And thank you so much, Sir Rahmat Empowerment Wala, for watching me live. So, Mr. Patrick, for your instance, Sir Rahmat Empowerment Wala, you can say he is my teacher. He teaches me how to do podcasts like these, and I'll connect you with him later on. So, thank you so much, Sir Rahmat. So,
Oh, sounds great.
that is Sir Rahmat. So, yes, Mr. Patrick, I want to ask you that. What type of mindset do you think is the best to make someone to let someone think that they're in peace rather than thinking the opposite? So what's the best mindset preset in your mind, in your opinion?
Oh, can you repeat the question? I'm trying to get what it means exactly.
Oh, my apologies. So I mean that what type of mindset do you think is the best for someone to believe with all of the distractions that they are in peace and they will be in peace if they just stay like this, in your opinion?
That is so fascinating. I think that one of the biggest mindsets you can have is to redefine failure. I think failure is something that is can be so painful and so frightening that on one hand, it could paralyze your efforts to keep going, to try again. But on the other, it's like when it does happen, it feels horrible. And, we have the tendency as people who, work on themselves, we have the tendency to blame ourselves. We believe, like, this is one of those empowering beliefs that I think need to evolve even further, which is that you are 100% responsible for everything that happens in your life. I don't think that's completely true, but at the same time, I don't want people to go back to the old victim mindset and say, "Oh, all this stuff is happening to me." So my first reframe when it comes to the mindset on failure is that failure is part of the process. So a lot of it's very common for people to believe that once they accomplish something that matters, for example, let's say, things we consider extraordinary, like, you have a best-selling book, you do, like, you're invited to, speak on stages, or you grew a successful business, that kind of important thing, or you lost like a ton of weight, or you built a lot of muscle. um, we think that, and we are actually encouraged by the internet culture to say, okay, because I accomplished this, I get to teach other people my story and my experience, and that's the one, big system that simply works. But the problem is that what works for you may not work for other people, and this is one of the biggest challenges I place on the people who are learning from experts, because what you hear in the internet a lot. I mean, I have to mention internet culture a lot, unfortunately, and
No, no problem.
is that what works for you works for others, or if I can do it, you can do it too. But it turns out our lives are vastly different. So I may have gotten like a great body doing a certain routine, but you can try the same thing tomorrow for as long as I did, and it may not work. So, and what I was trying to what I was getting at, sorry, when it
No,
comes to
no problem.
failure, is that uh, experts of all sorts, they when it comes to this type of expert that teaches their system and their story, right? They think that if you follow what they do, you'll be successful too. And if you deviate from that, it's almost like you're failing out of the system. Oh, it was 10 steps, and then you got stuck in step five, and then you need to go back to it. So, the way I see it, the mindset shift that's necessary here is that to me, when you fail, you don't fall off track. You are just meant to go in a slightly different direction for you to learn something about your situation, about yourself, and about what you're really going after. Because sometimes the reason we fail is that we are not meant to pursue that. Some other times, the reason we fail is that we're not meant to pursue that in that specific way, right? So you can say, for
Yep.
example, I want to be a writer, or I want to, let's say that let's talk about our voice. That matters to you because you are hosting podcasts, right? So you want to share your voice, you want to bring ideas and people together, and podcast is a great way to do it. But if somebody had the same goal as you did, you know, sharing ideas, bringing people together, would podcast be the only answer to that question? Not really. And it may work well for you, but it may not work for other people. Maybe other people need different means, of getting to the same place.
Yep.
So,
Yep,
and
that's true.
that's what failure is teaching us, in my view. So we're not supposed to go back to a certain right path. Like, all of it is part of the path. If that makes sense.
Yep, all of it is part of the path. So to just to summarize it easily, it just depends on the person. So the person should just think positively, then everything will happen positive with him, and he will start to understand that it's just part of the process.
That's it. That really helps you. I don't like to talk about optimism. Actually, it's
Yep.
very interesting because it's one of those gray areas where I am an optimist, but I am a realist at the same time. And you have to have faith in the process. Like, I agree
Yep.
with that 100%. It doesn't mean that things will turn out the way that you want exactly, but I completely agree with you that you have to acknowledge that all the ugly and messy parts of it are, yeah, critical for the journey, right?
All right, that's great to know. Thank you so much, Mr. Patrick, for sharing us with that. I really loved hearing it. So, Mr. Patrick, what do you think about fear? Not just any fear, like the fear of what others would say, because most of the people would sometimes have this type of mindset that to do something which the world wants rather than doing what you want from inside, because you have that fear that others will say stuff about you, or they will do this because you did this which is not what they want. So what is your take on that, and what do you suggest to people who think
Mm.
or they are, like, you can say, in a place that they are doing things with fear rather than doing the things by their own mindset and by their own choice?
That's a very real fear, and it's very easy to fall into that trap because we are not individualists, like living in isolation. we have families, we have social media too, we have peers at work, and all of them have a certain idea of who we are. They have certain expectations from us, and I there's a concept that I bring up a lot, which is breaking out of character, and that makes people fear doing what their heart is telling them, because they think that other people not only may criticize them, but also may become like less trustworthy because you are not being your predictable self, right? So that
Yep.
can be difficult. So my take is that I think that the one big idea that people need to embody in order to move forward, not without fear, but at least with that faith in the process and in themselves, is that, and I think it comes from personal experience where I've chosen a path, many paths that were one way or another against my own values, my own personality, who I thought I was. And life has its ways. This doesn't really happen to everybody, but life has its ways to demonstrate to you that you are going down the wrong path. So in my case, I was afraid, but I was also being slapped like on the face over and over again. So much failure, I couldn't bear it. And then I just kept going to what the expectations of me were, and things were still not working out. And then I almost feel like in my case, it almost happened out of survival. When I said, look, I have followed what the experts say. I've been trying to grow a coaching business for a really long time. I have failed a lot. And I was tired and I was like losing sleep and I was working really hard. And I even like had to put down so much money, like fortunes. So everything was going really bad. And one day I just said, look, like whatever they say, like the experts, like in my case, in a particular case, he was business gurus of business and marketing. So I was following those like to unhealthy extents, I guess. And I found myself failing constantly. And then I got to a point where I said, I can't continue this anymore emotionally, financially, even physically to some extent. And then I just said, well, screw it. Like, I just want to do what feels right for me. And it wasn't straightforward. It didn't happen overnight either, but I got to a point where I just wanted to heal. I wanted to leave the past behind, stop blaming myself for my mistakes. And the new path that was the one that I was meant to do slowly revealed itself. So I have the tendency to think that I'm not a normal person. um, I don't think that most people, crash against the same wall so many times. But it got to a point where, I found the path forward, and the what I really wanted to do, it just revealed itself slowly. First, I said, "Oh, I want to do a different type of coaching." Then that didn't work either, but it was better than before because it was. I didn't feel like I was betraying myself. I was trying that for a while, and then I shifted again a little bit more. I wanted to do this, and then I wanted to do that. So every time I changed directions, I was moving forward in a different sense. Not in the sense of getting results, but I realized I was choosing higher alignment with who I was, my values, the kind of person that I am. And then, a few years later, I landed on this idea of, you know what, I could be a business person. I don't feel myself like I am, but I know something. I know that I love to speak, and I know that one day I'm going to publish a book. So I stopped thinking, like a marketing guru, and I decided to just start speaking. Started recording videos. I started getting on podcasts more. I want to do it a lot more than this. And one day I said, you know what? I may feel, I felt like fraud for a long time, but I'm still going to write a book. So making all those decisions helped me come to peace with myself. And surprisingly, a lot of people who I thought were going to judge me actually had a positive response. And I think that goes back to your question on fear, which is that there's a lot we don't know about how people are going to react. And some people, yes, will criticize you, will resist you. Some of them may even leave you, but it's totally worth it.
So in the end, just keep going on, no matter what happens.
That's right. And you can do it slowly. I mean, no one is rushing you to find who you truly are. And then sometimes you think you found it, and then something more changes, and then you evolve into an even higher version of who you are. And that's what's crazy is that a few years ago I was convinced that I found my path. Okay, this is who I am. And then I kept finding more and more things the more I was experimenting and taking action.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful to know, Mr. Patrick. So, Mr. Patrick, what does discovering the real version of yourself mean, in your words?
Hmm. I think it comes down to a couple of things. So to me, there is some, slow, reflective work that needs to be done. I've done it through books, I've done it through courses, meditation, journaling. So it's really important to learn yourself inside out, and that includes things like, you know, what you are like. For example, I think that I somehow more recently went back to that part of myself who is more of an intellectual, right? An intellectual, a person who puts ideas together, who see patterns, who loves to take action but doesn't mind sitting for a while, putting things together. And then other parts of your personality, for example, I'm an introverted, so maybe you can tell by now, how much friction there was between me and like the hyped online marketing world. So yeah, I think that it starts there. And then you have to look at your history. I think this is important because um, you have to remember, because this happens to everybody. What I really love about this, some of the stuff that I teach now, is that nobody gets everything wrong and nobody starts from zero. So if you have a moment in your past where you felt joy, you can use that to know who you are. Maybe you went to a rock concert. I love rock concerts. Maybe you had some other type of experience where you went on camping and you really loved like the nature, or listening to the sounds of animals, or even hunting if that's your thing. And then you just go back to those memories and you say, they felt right. I felt fulfilled when I was doing them, and that's part of who I am. So the discovery process works like that too. And you can even find them in your daily life. When I work with clients, I encourage them to explore whatever is giving them joy today, right? And it can be anything. That's what I really love about this process. If I love having dinner with my family, that means something. That's something that I value. If I love eating, food at a good restaurant, that's something that I value too. And all of those small things put together is what make you you. And it's only a matter of bringing awareness to it. And then the next part is almost like past, present, and future. The next part is to try out new things. And this takes me back to a small story where many years ago, when I was, getting myself involved in coaching before I became a life coach. And I remember that I read that a similar idea to what I'm telling you now, about trying things that really resonate with you. And in my case, there was something that somehow I always knew I loved but I never tried, which was singing. And I remember that without having any like practice, any training, I knew nothing about singing well, singing like a pro. I still, honestly, that took crazy confidence. I don't know how I did that at the time, but I auditioned for a cover band, and they were playing like classic songs that I really liked. And in this, I had such a good time. I was rehearsing with them for like 2 hours, and that's when I discovered that I really loved singing. So it
That's
comes
wonderful
from
to know.
old experiences and new experiences.
So basically, you just have to summarize all of your experiences and try out new things related to them.
Yes, it's almost like they are a natural conclusion to all the things that you enjoy.
Yep. So, Mr. Patrick, what do you think? What role does honesty play in making you know yourself more better?
Honesty. I really like this topics because you're touching on some like ethical stuff. That's really good.
Yep.
Some people are like almost fearful of talking about ethics. I think it's really important. And honesty, I guess it depends. It's a very broad term, of course. It depends on how, in what realm you're applying it to. So there is some degree of dishonesty when we are, when we are not doing what we love, right? There is also a degree of honesty when we are trying to show others that we accomplished more than we actually did because we are attaching our value to external things. So people think that, for example, oh, I will be more believable if I say that I've been to 100 podcasts, but I actually had been to 10, right? Or I can be more believable if I say, well, I meditated for 10 years without missing a day. That's not true. But I did start meditating for like you can like sort of find the holes in your truthful statements, and then they won't be really honest. And it's not a problem of lying, it's a problem of having to prove yourself all the time.
Okay, that is true. So you just have to be honest with yourself. You should not. You should. So basically, the summary is: don't put or make any type of scenario in your mind which is not true. Always be true with yourself.
Yeah, that would sum it up well. And if something and sometimes it works the other way around, which is interesting, where we have done things that are that matter to us, that are somewhat valuable to other people, but somehow we don't value it enough. And that happens with people who are often highly successful, let's say in their career or their finances, or they have a marriage, or they have like assets, and somehow they feel like that's not enough. They compare themselves to people who are doing much better, apparently. And then, it's like the story they're telling themselves is that they haven't done anything. So this honesty works in that way too.
So it's just to stop comparing yourself to others.
That's key. That's really important.
Yep. So thank you so much, Mr. Patrick, for coming up on Wired and Inspired and talking with us on this very wonderful topic. I hope you enjoyed. And thank you so much for giving your precious time. You are very busy, as you mentioned, your day was busy. So thank you so much for giving your precious time. It was an honor hosting you. So, Mr. Patrick, I'd like to have your feedback. What do you say? What did you think about the interview, the podcast? How are the questions? And what's your honest reaction?
Oh yes, absolutely. Is there something that you would like me to do, like after the podcast, or now?
No, it's okay. You can do now.
Sure. Yes. Well, I think I really like your questions. It looks like they were thought out, and some of them, if I'm correct, it looks like you like came up with them on the fly. I'm not sure if I'm correct about that, but it looks like you didn't just come with a rigid structure. You actually were listening to everything and then coming up with your questions on the
Yep.
go. Like, that was very good. Some of your questions were not predictable, like expected. I thought that was good too. The questions on ethics, and then challenging me too, because you said, "Oh, so what does it look like to be true to yourself?" And then they said, "Well, since I'm saying that kind of phrase so much, I thought it was a very relevant question." So
Yep.
yeah, and if there was anything that I would do different if I was you, I guess, is just to be a little more engaged. Like, you're a very good listener, which means a lot, but I would speak a little more if that's okay.
Yep, that's true. So I just need to talk a little more.
Exactly. Yeah, no, no, absolutely. You did great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Patrick. So, lastly, if you'd like to give any advice to our audience in any way possible from your experiences, or just any type of advice you'd like to give to my audience, the stage is all yours.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that um, it's really important to invest in your personal growth, and you have to make sure that that journey doesn't lead you to become like somebody who's very successful. We're not looking to have another Steve Jobs, another Tony Robbins. We're looking to have the highest version of who you truly are. That's the only thing you can give. So forget about who you could be better than, and forget about you feeling like you're less or more than other people. That the world needs you.
So, just feel more yourself, enjoy yourself, peace, have peace with yourself, calm with yourself, and just trust and enjoy the process.
That's right, and trust that whoever you become, even if it's nobody else but you, will be enough.
Yep, that is true. That is true. So just be yourself, and whatever you become, just let it go. Trust the process, and everything will go fine.
That's right.
Yep. Thank you. So once more, thank you so much, Mr. Patrick, for your wonderful time. I really appreciated it. It was an honor hosting you. I really loved chit chatting with you and getting to know more about coaching and more about ethics. So thank you so much. So yes, everyone, he was my guest, Mr. Patrick's a very wonderful life coach. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'll see you guys in another podcast. Till then, goodbye.